Welcome to Talking Nonprofits with Teak Media, where we talk to industry experts about what it is they want to do, what they're doing, and how they can grow and scale. I'm Jackie Russell. I'm founder of Teak Media and Communication, and today we're here with Jacob Hoehne from Issimo Story Agency, a great, unbelievable organization that is creating storytelling for really change-making organizations around the world. And I met Jacob at Agency Management Institute actually a couple of years ago, and then we happened to find each other at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the gym, and we just got to know each other. But I was so impressed by your work, I reached out to see if you'd talk to us today. So welcome, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, honored to chat with you and happy to share any ideas that help lift the whole, impact community so we can collectively do a better job of, making the world a better place. We happen to focus on the storytelling aspect of that and helping organizations better understand and articulate and share their stories so that they can attract more money, then they can attract more people to their cause.
How did you come to start your company? What's your experience before owning Issimo?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started out, my undergrad is in film, and I worked in that field for about 5 years and then left to go get a hybrid communications and MBA program. It was at Syracuse University, and it was really in hindsight, I can see it was the business storytelling facet to really understand how business works and how to communicate that. And so started the agency shortly thereafter. For the first decade or so, it was really just, we were just chasing big name brands that would look good on a portfolio. And so we worked with brands like Goldman Sachs and Google and Panasonic and eBay. But about 6 years ago, we had a pivot to really focus in on social impact customers and companies. And that was when we were commissioned by the Laudato Si Challenge at the Vatican to create an opening film for their social impact conference. And so we actually read through the encyclical that Pope Francis issued that the whole theme was based on, of like, how do we use the free market to help solve the world's problems, particularly around the two main fragilities of the poor and the planet. And the topic was really fascinating. We got to debut the film at the Vatican at this conference in front of people from Earth Day and World Bank and billionaires and philanthropists, and just an interesting conglomeration of people that were all kind of brain trust assembled to see how can we leverage the free market to do good in the world. And it was just an electrifying experience where we're like, hey, we actually really love telling these stories. People really like what we're doing, and we happen to be really good at it, and people want to pay us for it. Like, how about we just do that? And we didn't end up creating a business model. We didn't go out and do market research. We just sort of dove in feet first. And that's been a great trajectory for us of like shifting where we're going to. In some ways, we see it as a little bit of Prometheus as far as like taking fire from the gods, these Fortune 100s that we used to be working with, and really giving it to the mere mortals or those who need it more, these impact organizations and nonprofits. So same resources and talents and skills we were using to help the likes of Google and Goldman Sachs, but now we're trying to empower those making the world a better place to tell more powerful stories that can help change the world. And so
that's great. It must be so rewarding. Is it?
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. That video, the one that I fell in love with initially, what was the reaction? It was so powerful. Must have been crazy to show it at the Vatican. How did people respond to it?
Yeah, it was kind of a magical experience. Our creative director, Zach, who wrote the script and did a fantastic job, and like the whole team that helped assemble it. And at the event, we had people, and this was a unique experience. We had people come up and want to hire us point blank from just seeing that film. Someone that saw the film wanted to show it at their conference in The Hague at like a month later. And so I found myself on a plane to the Netherlands. And at that conference, we had 3 different people come and like want to hire us to make something like that for them. Someone at that conference then wanted us to show it in Stockholm, and then it was at Monaco, and then it was in New York and Chicago. And so it just, I wouldn't say caught like wildfire, but I think the topic was very timely, and it's a message that, and Hopefully you can link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, I
But
was just going to say, I will definitely link to it.
yeah, part of I think what the magic of it is that it's a message about a big idea, and it's not trying to sell a particular service or a brand. So anyone can kind of take it and wave that banner and say, yes, this is what I believe. And so we've kind of narrowed in on, hey, we love making these kind of manifesto type films that are really about inspiring people to a big idea, less about selling a widget and more getting people to shift their paradigm around these topics. And the topic of that one was really, can we think a new thought around how we do capitalism? Can we make capitalism actually work for all? And I think that premise has really resonated with people.
Yeah, I thought so. I think every conscious capitalist should see that video. So moving. So tell me, in your effort to bring this sort of storytelling to all organizations that are changing the world or helping people of the planet, what are the problems you see that organizations or companies find when they're trying to get their story out there?
We tend to see some common themes, especially now. I think if you looked even 2 years ago, it had been more of a case that people tended to come to us to help convince their audience that impact was legitimate. Impact investing is doesn't have to be concessionary, or it can be, a legitimate investment strategy. And I think in the last 18 months to 2 years, that's really shifted, and there's a lot more people jumping on the impact bandwagon. And so I would say the first thing is really that most of these impact organizations aren't standing out from the crowd, and they look and sound just like everyone else, and they might be drastically different. So that's a thing, a challenge that we see, and even in the nonprofit space, there's a marketplace of ideas and opportunities and places for people to put their money, whether that's a investment with an ROI or a donation that has a different kind of ROI. The second thing we'd say is that we tend to see that these organizations are struggling to get in front of enough of the right people. So be that donors or investors or potential volunteers or partners, whatever that might be. It's how do we get in front of enough of the right people that they can take action? And then the third thing is really, even when they do get in front of those right people, they can't really get them to care enough. They don't really give a damn because they haven't made a clear and compelling story that connects to both their head and their heart. And so what Issimo does is we help them overcome those three challenges of really helping them have a differentiated story that's clear and concise and speaks to the head and the heart, and also distributed in a way that gets in front of the right people so they can take the right actions.
So when you say you take action, what is it that you actually do that helps organizations get to the core of their story so that they can get to the head and the heart, so that they can differentiate themselves and then therefore get to the right people? What do you all do? And what, even if like they can't hire you to do it, what can nonprofits do themselves or responsible companies to draw out those stories?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Whether we do this for you or they want to do it themselves, I think it starts with first looking inside. So it's understanding yourself and what's your unique DNA and what's the unique value you can provide in the world. And then understanding who your audience is and what's the obstacle they face and how are you uniquely positioned to help them get what they want. So it's very much putting them as the hero of the story and you are the assistant. But what we do to help them on that journey is, so if you hire a graphic designer to create an identity or a brand for you, you'd expect to get a style guide that would walk you through, here's your logo, here's the fonts and colors that you would use. And so it helps you on how to articulate your brand in that way. In a similar way, we do it with storytelling, but we create a story guide. So in order to arrive at that, we interview the founder or whoever's the kind of the custodian of the brand, we want to look at what leadership thinks and download that and listen and ask probing questions. Second is we want to talk to their staff and their team and really see what do they understand and why are they voting with their time to be a part of this, if they're a volunteer, if they're staff. And then also talk to their customers and understand, why are you voting with your dollars? Why do you frequent this, or why are you willing to donate, or why have you chosen them over other options? So that we can understand, how do we find more people like the ones that are already, what's made you successful to this point with the people that have supported you, like what are the reasons that they actually care? And we do that in a 4-week sprint. So it's lots of, quantitative interviews, and part of that is getting to the heart of what those motivations are, and also what the language is, the way that they talk about it, what are the metaphors they use, what are the stories they use, so that we can capture that and then relay that to other people that might feel and have some approaches. So our story guide process is a lot of interviews and questions for these different audiences, and then we assimilate that into what we've heard and what we see, and connecting the dots. And this is helpful even if you're going to do this internally. Get someone outside of your organization that doesn't see this, where it isn't just so close up that you can't see the forest for the trees. It's really hard to read the label of the jar you're inside of, right? You need someone outside of yourself to be able to actually be ignorant and skeptical and say, well, why should I care? How are you actually better than other options? That's actually an enviable position, to have that distance to be able to see these things together. And so we'll distill all that down into a document of, here's the tone that you need to be using. Here's this kind of story. These are the problems your audience faces, and this is how you are uniquely positioned to help them overcome that. And so that is really the foundation of that story guide, is really the foundation of them articulating their story in whatever facet that might be. So they could take that and run with it to go have someone do their social media or create their website, or what they do for their trade show or their event or their gala. Once they know this is who we are and this is what we stand for. And a lot of those they have probably articulated in some way, but it's actually fixing it in a tangible form and making it clear for everybody. And sometimes it's deciding this is what we're choosing to say, and this is position we want to take in the marketplace, and the mental space we want to own in the minds of our ideal audience. And so that's always the groundwork to then that sets the stage. So then we can go create content that's going to be, one, first and foremost, ring true for that organization, for the founders and for the staff, because it's authentic to who they are. And it's also going to ring true to audience, because it's solving the problem that they want solved anyway. And we see the paradigm for marketing. I think the old paradigm is, how do you manipulate people to buy stuff they don't really want? And I would replace that with, how do you find those people that when they find you, they're like, where have you been all my life? This is exactly what I've needed. Thank you so much. It's attracting the people who believe what you believe, and like where you are a blessing and a godsend for them. That's a totally different energy that I think also for nonprofits, shifting it from, oh, I've got to, no, we're almost always apologetic, instead of like, no, we actually solve a problem and we create value for people, and we allow people to make impact in whatever facet that might be. But we have something to give, and we can do that with pride and honor. It's what we're doing, and it's not all apologetic that we have to ask for money. It's a value exchange, and we create value that is worth that.
Yeah. Talk about how you talk about how it's like a magnet,
Yeah.
right? And how you have to stand for something, and you talk about that. I think that's like amazing and brilliant.
Yeah. No, that's it. I think sometimes, especially when you're in social impact, it can be, we don't want to rock the boat, or everyone. And even in any organization, like, I think it's always a red flag of, well, everyone is our customer. Well, no, that's not true. Even for Walmart, even for Adobe or Microsoft, not everyone is your customer. And so the more that you actually, like, the stronger you are as a magnet to attract the right people. One, you have to focus that in, but you're drawing people who believe what you believe in, that, because it starts with what your authentic DNA is. But then if you think about a magnet, it has one pole that attracting people, and on the other end, it actually in equal force is repelling the wrong people. And so a weak brand is one that doesn't have sufficient pull, because it's not willing to also maybe repel anyone. So if you're trying to be all things to all people, you're nothing to everyone. So you have to take a stand and be something that someone cares passionately about. And unless you're willing to do that, you're just going to be, have a weak pull. It doesn't mean that you need to be offensive. It doesn't mean that you have to push away people, but they will naturally select out, because you're not about this core thing that you can own and passionately pursue. And so, like, yeah, and sometimes there's that fear of, well, we don't want to turn anybody off. But I think if you're not turning off some people, you're not attracting others.
Right.
And
That's, I
so the
think that's
strong brand
great.
has to stand for something and be something that someone is passionate about, either love or hate, on the most extreme side. But yeah, so I think that all starts though with, what are you as an organization willing to just, what's authentic to you, and what are you willing to own and be sustainable to? And it's not chasing what's the most, it's not chasing the trends or what's the shiny object, because you have to be authentic. And I think people sniff that out, especially with social media, especially in the world today. Like, organizations that don't follow what they truly believe, um, I don't think they'll last.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's great. I think it's great advice. When you say that to your clients, talking about attracting in the right people and repelling those who aren't, and the duality of that, how do they respond?
I mean, sometimes there's some initial, resistance of, well, we don't want to turn away anybody. Like, every dollar could seem like a good dollar, but I mean, especially when it comes to investors, or customers or donors, like, you need to think of it more. The bigger the ticket item is, the more that it's like actually more like a marriage, and you don't want the wrong matching is actually can cause more heartache and pain, or like making a bad hire in a business, right? Like, getting rid of a bad employee, it can be much more painful. So I think seeing that, not all money, you don't necessarily want everybody's money, because their strings attached or their expectations are going to be in misalignment for where the cause needs to go. And so, like, but I would say, when you find those that are aligned, that are drawn to who you are, it's very much, I've heard it called a peanut butter and jelly relationship, where it just goes together and things are, it's 10 times better because, you have those things together. And I borrow that from Pamela Slim with, she talks about peanut butter and jelly relationships in building an ecosystem, in her book, The Whitest Net, which I highly recommend.
Great. Thank you for that. I'll take it. Tell me about that study that you referenced that talks about the deterioration of the owning of the message. What was that study
Yeah.
called again?
Yeah, we call it the clarity decay curve. We did an original research study, and we looked at 159 impact organizations in 34 different countries. And we wanted to see what is highly correlated with success in impact fundraising, and what things, like, particularly we wanted to see what's the role that storytelling has in terms of success in storytelling, in fundraising. And we saw a number of commonalities. And one of the interesting takeaways we saw was actually this phenomenon we call the clarity decay curve. That when we looked at, okay, a leader in an impact organization, 53% of them said, we have a crystal clear understanding of what our organization is all about. But as soon as you step outside of the leader's head and into just the staff inside the organization, that drops by half of those that report having a crystal clear understanding of what the organization is all about. And as soon as you step outside of the organization to partners or potential donors or, volunteers, that actually drops in half again. So if you plot it out, it's this logarithmic decay curve. And part of what we saw from the study was that, the more that leaders relied on word of mouth or talking, just in assuming that everyone understood, of course they know why we do what we do and why this is so important. But even your own staff, only half of them have a crystal clear understanding compared to what leadership has. And then half again, reduction for a potential donor or sponsor or potential investor. And so I think it helps illuminate the importance of getting it outside of leadership's head, articulating the why in a clear way that isn't dependent on, the telephone game, and is fixed in a tangible medium that people can share and is right, not just once, but right every time that somebody sees it. And so having that message articulated in a video or in some fashion that, someone all the way down to the end of the line can hear and feel it and understand this is what we're about is critically important. Because otherwise, like, one of the challenges is, Donald Miller says, if you confuse, you lose. So especially when it comes to fundraising, someone is not going to give you money if they are unclear about why your organization and what the cause is. And, the more confusion there is, the less likely they are to give you money or to donate or to participate or partner. And so clarity is actually far more important, than just persuasion or just, looking polished or So I think the name of the game with any of that is building trust, and clarity helps build trust. And so being clear about what you're about, being consistent on those is vitally important.
So, what are the solutions that you see with organizations? Do you have any stories to tell about how your work has helped organizations grow or raise more money?
I mean, one that comes to mind, one of our favorite nonprofits is Empower. They're based out of Brooklyn, and they help women of color and veterans and other disadvantaged populations get the training they need to qualify for high-paying tech jobs. And so some of these individuals going from literally homeless or never having owned a computer themselves to being a cybersecurity analyst for Citibank. So they're drastic transformation for themselves and their career and for their family and their potential. And love the impact they're doing, especially when you look at women and women of color in tech. The percentages are abysmal. In some places, less than 3%. And so they're trying to remedy that. And when they engaged us, we took their existing budget that they had for visual communications at their gala, and with the same budget, with more effective storytelling, we were able to help them double the amount that they raised at their fundraising gala, which was really gratifying. I mean, in 2 hours, they raised $2 million.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And so and the fact that we're, now going to do our 6th year in a row, and each year we've helped to move that number up a bit, and it's
Good for
always
you.
done in a cohort of things, right? Like there's never a magic bullet or this one thing is the only thing they do, because it's always in partnership with and collaboration with their teams, and they do a fantastic job of bringing in the right partners and bringing in, and really they have the transformational stories because they're doing a great job. We just are helping them tell those stories more effectively, so people understand what they're about and feel it, so that they feel motivated to donate.
Perfect. Exactly. That's great. Great work. Thank you for being with us here today.